Check this. Let's say I'm trying to hire people to dig a ditch for me. I go out and I get 5 or 6 quotes, and then you come along and you try to hit me with value-based pricing. What do you think's going to happen? Well, let's find out right now. I keep getting messages from people who are saying, Tim, that value-based pricing, that probably works for that industry over there, or maybe that other one over there, but it won't work for my industry, or even worse, it won't work for my business. It might work in my industry, but it won't work for my business. So I decided to hit you with an analogy that removes any particular industry, or really just simplifies it down to a concept that you can't say, oh, that's not going to work for me, because all you have to do is replace ditch digger with whatever your industry is, and it will work. You come to me and tell me I'm an expert at digging ditches, and I can dig a ditch better than any of those competitors. So what we need to talk about is the value of that ditch, so that I can get paid far more money for doing the exact same work as my competitors. Well, not the exact same work, it's better than their work. Here's the thing, as a buyer, I don't really believe you. Maybe I do, but even then, I would rather pay far less money and get about 80% of what I asked for. You might be able to come in and give me 100% of what I want done to that ditch, but there's no way I'm going to pay significantly more. From the buyer's perspective, you're just making a claim, as are all those other competitors. They've made a claim that they can do a great job of digging the ditch that I want done. So when you come and try to negotiate a much higher rate based on the value I'm going to get from that ditch, then what happens is you've got to come in with far higher levels of proof than those other guys. Those other guys just say, hey, I'm good at doing this thing, and here's all the ditches that I've dug. Cool? Okay, here's my price. And then I decide, well, that's a good price, and then I hire that person. But then along comes a civil engineer who literally wrote the book on digging ditches. Worked for the Army Corps of Engineers, built one of the largest ditches in the United States. This guy comes along and says, you know, maybe you don't even need a ditch. I looked at what you were asking for. You might just need to redirect the drainage. Are you interested in having a conversation to find out if the ditch that you're asking for really will solve the problem that you want? What's happened is this engineer has reframed my whole problem. I thought, through my self-assessment, my self-diagnosis, that this ditch is exactly what I needed. But this person who's an expert, a true authority in the field, is saying, hey, maybe we should have a conversation about that self-diagnosis to determine if you've actually made the right choice. Whereas all those other competitors, they just said, yeah, I can dig that ditch for you, and here's how much it's going to cost. See, that's where the real key in getting value-based pricing occurs. You can't even have a value-based price discussion if the buyer doesn't believe that you're bringing something unique to the table. If all you're doing is bringing labor, whatever your labor is, if that's all you bring, what's going to happen is they're going to go with a reasonable price. The person that they believe is going to do a really good job for a good price, and that's it. If you reframe the problem in the buyer's mind, then it gives you the opportunity to discuss value versus just doing labor. So the engineer asked me, well, why do you want this ditch? And I say, well, I'm trying to redirect rainwater from one part of my property over to my orchards. And I would like to have that water flow over there so I can keep my orchards properly watered throughout the year. And the engineer asked, well, if you're after consistent watering, then you're only going to get water from rainfall that's going to go over, and then it's going to dissipate. So yes, you will be able to direct water over to your orchard, but it will go away. What if we built a rainwater catchment system? Now here's something that I've never even considered as the buyer. A completely different solution to the thing that I'm after. Now the engineer can ask, well, if you water your orchards properly throughout the year, what kind of increased productivity, increased yield from your orchard will you get? And I do some quick math and say, oh, about 20%. Oh, well, what's that worth? Oh, about $200,000 in additional revenue from my orchard in a year. And now we're on to value. We now know from the buyer's perspective how much this water system is actually worth. It's not the ditch that they were after. It was solving this water problem. You can't even have the discussion if all you do is come in and start discussing solving that ditch problem, when in reality it was something else that the buyer was trying to solve. The other part is you have to have the credibility, the authority to be able to have that discussion with a buyer. They won't even approach that discussion with you if they see you as just another ditch digger. If they see you as an authority of water systems, then they are going to discuss that with you. If you come in and like, God, man, I'm one of the best ditch diggers in the world, they are not going to have a conversation about a rainwater catchment system with you. It's not going to happen. So you have to understand where your position is in your market. Are you truly an authority capable of solving business problems, or are you someone who just does labor? Finally, in the sales conversation, the engineer is going to be able to bring up budget, be able to price anchor and say, well, a rainwater catchment system could run between $150,000 down to about $80,000. Does that fit within your budget? We know it fits within their value because it's only going to cost $150,000 at most in this year, yet they're going to get that increased yield on into the future. As you can see, the engineer has taken control of this entire process, whereas all the competitors, they were just trying to give the buyer exactly what the buyer was after, because they felt that that's the thing that will get me the job. What will get me the job is just to offer a price, a good price for doing the thing that the buyer is asking for. And that keeps those competitors, those ditch diggers, all clumped together with no differentiation between each other. They have to compete on price. On the other hand, the engineer has been able to prove just through a conversation that he can do more than digging a ditch. He can actually solve additional water-related problems. If that buyer wants more than just taking care of his orchard and there's some other issue, the buyer now understands that this person, this authority, is capable of doing it and is unlikely to use any of those other competitors. Now what I want you to do is replace ditch digger with whatever your job is. What do you do? Replace engineer with you, with who you are, the authority who can come in and actually solve more than what the client is asking for. Someone who can truly diagnose the client's problem. And that is the key to being able to do value-based pricing in any industry. Now, dig that like button, and I value you subscribing and sharing and doing all the socials. And I'll see you right back here in the next video.